Perhaps each of us has, at least once, faced days so heavy it felt impossible to take another step. That could be a failure at work, a breakup in a relationship, or moments when we look around and see life with no apparent way out. The ancients called human life a sea of suffering. And that's precisely why. Because from the moment we utter our first cry upon entering the world, humans carry within them fragility, weakness, and vulnerability. We grow up amidst worries and struggles, and every step is bound to involve collisions and losses. Sometimes these sufferings pass gently, like a small scratch, but other times they weigh so heavily that the heart feels as if it's about to break. Yet, deep within these sufferings, a message is hidden. If we are calm enough to recognize it, we will understand that every hardship is our own teacher. The Buddha once said that life is suffering, but not for us to give up. Rather, for us to know that suffering is the raw material for enlightenment. Just as a lotus seed must grow from muddy water to emanate its fragrant scent, so too do humans. Only by passing through their darkest moments come to understand the value of light. If life were only favorable, only full of joy, perhaps we would never truly appreciate happiness, never be humble enough to learn to listen and empathize with others. There is a story about a young woman who came to the Buddha, weeping uncontrollably because her only child had just died. Her heart shattered. She knelt at the Buddha's feet, pleading for him to bring her child back to life. The Buddha did not scold her, nor did he hastily offer comfort. He simply told the woman to go and find a mustard seed from a house where no one had ever died. The woman ran through villages, knocking on every door. But everywhere, she received the same answer. Someone had passed away there. When she returned, she collapsed in tears. But at that very moment, she awakened to the truth. No one is immune to suffering, and death is an inevitable part of life. From then on, she learned to accept, learned to let go, and found peace within her soul. When we hear this story, we might suddenly realize that our own losses and impasses are actually opportunities to see the truth. No one can live without experiencing suffering, but the important thing is how we choose to face that suffering. If we resent it, we will forever be submerged in darkness. But if we open our hearts and learn to look directly at reality, we will find the strength to move forward. The Buddha taught that suffering is a doorway to wisdom. Every tear that falls, if illuminated by mindfulness, can transform into a precious gem on humanity's journey of growth. So, when life leads us into a dead end, when an impasse makes our heart ache, remember that it is not the end, but a reminder for us to pause, listen to ourselves, and reflect on the path we have taken. It is a sea of suffering, but it is precisely through suffering that we learn to be resilient, to love, and to cherish peaceful moments. Suffering does not come to punish us, but to open a door where the light of enlightenment awaits us. And when we understand this, we will see that an impasse is merely a stepping stone that leads us to maturity and peace within our souls. Life, by its very nature, never follows a straight, flat path, as we might expect. On that journey, we must taste many bitter-sweet experiences and face unexpected turns that no one can foresee. One of the greatest pains humans often endure is loss. Material loss can make us sad, but the loss of affection, of loved ones, can make our hearts ache inconsolably. Yet, if we look through the lens of Buddhist teachings, we will see that it is precisely within these profound sorrows that we have the opportunity to grow, to realize the true value of happiness, and to cherish every present moment. The Buddha once taught that all phenomena in life are impermanent. What we consider certain, what we stubbornly cling to, ultimately vanishes like a drifting cloud, or like morning dew melting under the sunlight. Humans are born, grow up, and then pass away. No one can resist this law. We suffer not because departure is inherently natural, but because in our hearts we do not accept this truth. We cling to what we call possession and believe that what we love will stay with us forever. When the harsh truth strikes, we collapse. We see life as unfair. But in reality, that is merely a law from which no one throughout the ages has been able to escape. If we make an effort to look deeply into the nature of loss, we will realize that suffering is not only darkness, but also a doorway for us to enter enlightenment. A person who has never experienced loss will hardly understand the value of what they possess. A person who has never shed tears cannot fully appreciate how precious a smile is. Just as a seed must be buried deep in the earth, enduring darkness and pressure to sprout and grow into a green plant, so too must humans pass through pain and loss to learn strength and maturity. There is a story that the Lin Ung Buddhist Dharma channel wishes to share. A true story about a young woman named Lan living in Bin Duong. Lan was a gentle mother, wholeheartedly loving and caring for her only son. For Lan, her son was her faith, her hope, the light of her entire life. But fate had a cruel plan. In a sudden traffic accident, her 10-year-old son was forever taken from his mother's arms. The devastating news hit her like a lightning bolt. Lan collapsed, her heart aching so intensely she felt as if she could no longer breathe. For many months, she lived in reclusive grief, unwilling to meet anyone or do anything. Each day that passed was a day of endless tears, a day her heart tightened with the image of her child. Perhaps any mother would understand this pain. Losing a child is like losing a part of one's own body. Every night, Lan dreamed of her son returning. His laughter, his calls of mom, still echoed in her mind. But upon waking, the house felt so cold and empty that she couldn't bear it. That pain dragged her into darkness, causing her to lose faith in life. Many times, she even thought of letting go of everything to follow her son. However, a turning point came for Lan when a close friend took her to the pagoda. Initially, Lan didn't want to go, thinking nothing could alleviate her pain. But in a moment, as the temple bell rang out in the quiet afternoon, her heart subtly stirred. The sound resonated and spread, as if cleansing some of the heaviness in her soul. Lan began to listen to the Dharma talks, joining the congregation in clasping her hands, closing her eyes, and chanting the Buddha's name. Gradually, each verse of the sutra, each teaching, soaked into her heart like cool drops of water, soothing the parched earth within her. Through these Dharma sessions, Lan learned that all humans must go through birth, old age, sickness, and death. No one can escape the law of impermanence. We are merely temporary visitors to this world. When karmic conditions are ripe, we meet. When they end, we must part. Lan realized that her son had been with her for 10 years, and that was a precious karmic affinity. Now that the affinity had ended, her son was gone, but love and memories remained in her heart. Lan gradually learned to accept, no longer resenting life, but instead feeling gratitude for the happy days she had spent with her son. Not stopping at just listening to the Dharma, Lan began to practice chanting sutras, reciting the Buddha's name, and volunteering at the pagoda. Every early morning, she would sit quietly, breathe gently, and read a short sutra to send peaceful energy to her deceased son. She believed that through her sincerity and heartfelt dedication, her son would receive serene energy in another realm. And it was through these practices that her heart gradually healed. The pain did not disappear, but it became lighter. Lan found her smile again after months that seemed eternally dark. Lan's story is not just a tragedy, but also a testament to the healing power of Buddhist Dharma. Loss is a painful truth, but if we open our hearts, we will see that within that loss lies an opportunity to grow, to realize that life is impermanent, and to truly cherish every present moment. Pain is the material that deepens our soul, teaches our heart to love more, and helps us live a more meaningful life. My dear friend, if today you are also going through a loss or some kind of impasse, please remember that you are not alone. Suffering is something everyone experiences, but how you choose to face it determines whether you find peace or not. Instead of resenting, try listening to a sutra. Try sitting quietly and breathing slowly. Try reciting the Buddha's name a few times. If you are persistent, your heart will gradually calm down, like a lake settling after a storm. You can practice something very simple right now. Sit still, close your eyes, place your hand on your chest, and feel each beat of your heart. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly. With that breath, silently think, I accept the truth. I thank life for what has come and gone. Repeat this a few times, and you will feel a lightness in your heart, as if a burden is being lifted. This is how Buddhist Dharma enters life, not through distant theories, but through the practice of mindfulness in every small moment. Remember that loss is never the end. It is merely a chapter in the book of life. And after that chapter, you can continue writing with your own growth, with your own gratitude and love. If seen through the light of Buddhist Dharma, we will find that every pain is a teacher. It teaches us to live sincerely, to let go, and to cherish the simple happiness around us. So, do not fear loss. See it as an opportunity to learn how to be stronger, to find peace and steadfast faith within your soul. This life is never as smooth as we imagine. Every person must face thorns, stumbles, and failures that seem impossible to recover from. Some give up after one failure, living in sadness and self-consciousness. But others, precisely from within that failure, find the strength to move forward, to rise, stronger than ever. The Buddha once taught that stormy waves cannot defeat a person. Only a mind stuck in an impasse can make us fall. That teaching is a compass for us to understand that failure is not scary. What is truly scary is when we lose faith and abandon ourselves. Failure is an essential part of life. No one is born successful on their very first try. A child learning to walk must fall hundreds of times before they can take steady steps. A seed, too, must spend many days in the darkness of the earth before it can sprout and grow into a green plant. Likewise, for humans to mature and succeed, they must inevitably experience failure. Failure is not an end, but a stepping stone for us to learn, to adjust, to better understand the path we are on. Many people fear failure so much that they dare not start, or they quickly give up after a stumble. But if we understand karma, we will know that no effort is in vain. Every drop of sweat shed, every attempt followed by failure, plants a seed for future success. Just as a farmer sowing seeds in a field does not see a golden harvest in a day or two, but must patiently tend, fertilize, water, and weed, so too is life. As long as we keep our minds steady, persevere, and do not lose heart, sooner or later, we will reap sweet rewards. The Lin Ung Buddhist Dharma channel wants to tell you the story of a young man named Hung from Quang Nagai. Hung was born into a modest family, but dreamed of starting his own business. After many years of working for others, he saved up a small amount of capital to open a coffee shop. But the first time, the shop didn't attract many customers, and he lacked management experience, eventually having to close it down due to losses. Hung didn't lose heart. He borrowed more money to open a second, then a third shop. Yet all 3 attempts failed consecutively. Friends ridiculed him, and his family advised him to give up and find a stable job. People said he was a daydreamer, not knowing his own limits. There were times when Hung wavered, feeling lonely and ashamed. However, instead of giving up, Hung chose to reflect on himself. He realized that his failures weren't due to fate, but because he hadn't gained enough experience, hadn't learned to listen to customers, and hadn't truly understood how to run a business. He started taking more classes, attending training courses, observing other shops, and learning from those who came before him. He patiently saved up capital, bit by bit, decided to try again for a 4th time. And miraculously, this time, Hung's coffee shop attracted many customers and gradually became well known in the area. Customers came not only for the delicious drinks, but also because Hung created a warm and friendly atmosphere where everyone felt comfortable. Looking back, Hung understood that without those 3 previous failures, he would never have achieved today's success. Failure taught him humility, patience, how to listen, and how to rise again. Most importantly, Hung understood that success does not come from the first attempt, but from persistence and a steadfast mind in the face of adversity. Hung's story reminds us of the Buddha's teaching. Without wind, the ocean would be still, but no ships would ever set sail. Life's challenges do not come to drown us, but to temper our courage and show us the hidden strength within ourselves. The person who maintains a calm mind in the face of difficulty will go far. The person who sees failure as merely a lesson will, sooner or later, achieve great things. My dear friend, perhaps right now, you also carry the wounds of failure in your heart. Perhaps you once started a business, but didn't succeed. Once placed your trust in a relationship only to be betrayed. Once poured your heart and soul into a project only for it to fall apart. These things bring you suffering, but believe that you are not alone. Everyone experiences failure, and failure itself is the greatest teacher. What matters is how you choose to face it. You can fall and stop, but you can also stand up, wipe away your tears, and continue walking with a steadier mind. You can try a small practice to keep your mind steady. Sit still, inhale deeply, and exhale slowly. As you inhale, silently tell yourself, "I embrace the challenge." As you exhale, silently tell yourself, "I release fear." Repeat this a few times, and you will find a sense of tranquility within your heart. Once the mind is at peace, we can clearly see that failure is just a phase, not the entirety of life. Try keeping a small notebook. Each time you fail, write down what you learned from it. Initially, they may only be small lessons, but gradually you will see that failure itself has taught you more than short-lived successes. And when you look back at the path you've traveled, you will smile, understanding that none of it was in vain. Finally, let me reiterate that a successful person is not someone who has never failed, but someone who knows how to get up after every fall. Success comes not from perfection, but from persistence. Do not fear failure, because failure is merely a test to see if you truly believe in the path you have chosen. Keep a strong heart, a resolute mind, and a belief that even if a storm comes, you can still stand firm. So, if today you are sitting in the darkness of failure, please see it as an opportunity to challenge yourself. Remember that after a long, dark night, dawn always appears. Just as a seed must crack its shell to become a plant, humans must go through failure to grow. Life is a sea of suffering, but in suffering, we find strength. With a steady mind and enduring resolve, you will find that no failure can defeat you. And once you have passed through those difficult days, you will realize that failure itself is the precious baggage that helps you write a brilliant success story in your life. Human life is short, yet in every moment, each person must face countless challenges. At times, we feel as though the whole world has turned its back on us, with nowhere left to lean, no one to hold our hand and support us. In such moments, only one thing keeps us from collapsing: self-respect and self-reliance. Because when we maintain our dignity, we will not be easily swayed by temptation. When we know how to rely on our own hands and willpower, we will no longer fear the storms of life. The Buddha once taught that if humans wish to escape the cycle of suffering, they must return to their inner selves, recognizing the inherent strength within them. He advised, "Be a lamp unto yourselves, rely on yourselves, and seek no other refuge." This saying is a great reminder that self-respect and self-reliance are not just moral qualities, but also the path that helps us overcome impasses, preventing life from sweeping us into the traps of desire and despair. In life, countless people lose their dignity for a small gain. They might become rich in an instant, but deep within their souls, restlessness always surrounds them. Money earned through deceit never brings peace. Those who lack self-respect are easily scorned by others, lose the trust of others, and most importantly, lose themselves. Conversely, those who uphold self-respect, no matter how difficult life becomes, still hold their heads high and walk with confidence and serenity. For self-respect is a shield that protects us from all gossip, temptation, and challenges. Furthermore, self-reliance is the source of all strength. As long as we wait for someone else to save us, we live in weakness. But when we know that only our own hands can shape our lives, we will find a bright path, even in adversity. Relying on ourselves helps us mature, free from dependence on pity or temporary help from others. The Buddha taught the law of karma. What you sow, so shall you reap. If we sow the seeds of self-reliance and self-strengthening, we will harvest the fruits of stability, freedom, unconstrained by any external force. The story of Ms. Tu, who sold sticky rice in a small market, is a vivid illustration of this. Ms. Tu was not wealthy, nor did she hold a high position, yet she was renowned throughout the region for one thing: her honesty. For decades selling sticky rice, she never shortchanged customers, never cheated. People bought her sticky rice not just because it was delicious, but because they trusted that their money was exchanged fairly. Once, when the price of rice increased and profits decreased, many advised her to reduce the portion size to compensate. But she just shook her head, saying that one must live in a way that leaves virtue for one's children and grandchildren. That virtue, in this context, is self-respect. It was precisely because of her integrity that her small, sticky rice stall never lacked customers. Even when many other stalls popped up, her self-respect built her reputation. And that reputation became her greatest asset, leading her descendants to be respected and trusted by others. Through this story, we clearly see that self-respect not only benefits one's own life, but also leaves a legacy of virtue for generations. A person who maintains their dignity is like someone who keeps precious seeds. Sown into the earth, they will sprout, bear flowers and fruit, nourishing many generations. Conversely, someone who loses self-respect is like spoiling an entire field, sowing suffering not only for themselves, but also for their children and grandchildren. Similarly, a self-reliant person will never be cornered. They may fall, but they will know how to get back up. They may fail, but they will not be submerged by that failure. A person with self-respect who also knows self-reliance will not be brought down by any impasse, for they possess an invisible strength, an unwavering belief that they are capable of moving forward. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught that conquering thousands of armies is not as great as conquering oneself. Self-respect and self-reliance are manifestations of that self-conquest. When we maintain self-respect, we overcome greed, deceit, and cowardice. When we rely on ourselves, we overcome laziness, dependence, and weakness. That is the greatest, most enduring victory. To cultivate this strength, we can start each day with small actions. For instance, sit quietly for a few minutes, breathe deeply, and listen to the voice within yourself. Ask yourself, what have I done today that makes me proud? Have I lived true to my dignity? Just by answering honestly, you will clearly see what you need to adjust. Or, you can write down 3 small tasks for the day that you want to complete with your own hands, without reliance or waiting. When repeated, these small acts will amplify the power of self-reliance and self-respect, like small streams gradually seeping into a vast ocean. As we step into life, we will inevitably encounter gossip, sweet yet poisonous temptations. Without self-respect, we would easily be swept along, losing ourselves in others' games. Without self-reliance, we would forever wait for salvation from external sources, while our own self is the true refuge. Therefore, maintaining self-respect and nurturing self-reliance is not a choice, but the only path for us to walk with serenity amidst life's storms. Remember that dignity cannot be bestowed by anyone. It only exists when we uphold it ourselves. Strength does not come from external help, but from our own hands and hearts, cultivated daily. When we live uprightly, preserving our self-respect, when we stand firm on our own self-reliance, then no matter how many times life pushes us down, we will be steadfast enough to rise, wipe away our tears, and smile as we continue. The message here is that self-respect and self-reliance not only help us overcome impasses, but also give us the pride to live each day fully. That is the foundation of true strength, a strength that will never be defeated by time, adversity, or temptation. Anyone who knows how to live like this will surely find a bright path even in the darkest nights of life. Life is a sea of suffering. That is a truth the Buddha pointed out thousands of years ago. Suffering comes not only from poverty or illness, but also from invisible pressures weighing heavily on each person's body and mind. Amidst life's hurried pace, we are absorbed in making a living, endlessly racing with work, with calculations of gain and loss, forgetting one important thing. Both body and mind need rest, need nourishment, need healing. No matter how strong a person may be, how much they may struggle against difficulties, if their soul has no refuge, they will sooner or later be exhausted. A large tree whose roots are not watered will wither. Similarly, if the mind is not at peace, the body cannot be healthy, and life cannot be tranquil. Many people think that happiness only comes with a lot of money, high status, big houses, fancy cars, and beautiful clothes. But even after having it all, they still feel empty, restless, and troubled inside. This is because true happiness does not come from external things, but from inner peace. If the mind is at peace, the surroundings will be peaceful. If the heart is clear, life will be bright. The Buddha taught that when the mind is pure, the Buddha realm manifests. This means that when our mind is calm and serene, we are already in a realm of peace, right in the present moment. In modern life, stress and anxiety are like undercurrents seeping into every family and every person. Some are pressured by the need for food and money. Others are exhausted by piles of work. And still others suffer from troubled relationships. All of these make the body and mind weary, drained of vitality. If we do not know how to turn inward, how to find a way to nourish and heal ourselves, it is like constantly piling more burdens onto shoulders that are already drooping. That is why the Buddha always advised people to practice, to return to their breath, to nourish their body and mind with mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom. A simple yet meaningful story about healing the body and mind can be seen in Uncle Ba, a truck driver in central Vietnam. His life was tied to long-haul truck trips, day and night struggling on harsh roads, facing stressful work, the pressure of on-time deliveries, plus noise and dust, all of which often made him tired and irritable. Once, due to excessive stress, he drove while distracted and had a minor accident. Although no one was seriously injured, the shock made him reflect deeply. He realized that if he continued to live in stress without caring for his body and mind, one day he would pay a very high price. Coincidentally, a friend introduced him to a Dharma talk at a pagoda. The monk's teachings touched his heart. When one's mind is angry, the path ahead is obscured. Only when the mind is at peace can one drive safely and live a peaceful life. From that day on, he practiced meditating every morning for just 15 minutes. At first, he found it uncomfortable. His mind kept chasing worries and images of work. But with persistence, day after day, he learned to sit still, breathe deeply, and let go of thoughts. Gradually, he noticed he was less irritable, no longer snapping at his wife and children as before, and he drove more calmly, having fewer incidents. His family became happier. Family meals were no longer weighed down by arguments. Maintaining inner peace had become a medicine that healed both his body and mind, bringing an incomparable serenity. Uncle Ba's story is an example for us to see that practicing mindfulness and meditation is not just for monastics, but anyone, in any circumstance, can practice it to nourish their body and mind. The Buddha taught that when the mind is at peace, the body is also at peace. When the mind is agitated, the body will fall ill. This meaning reminds us that maintaining a peaceful mind is the greatest key to healing. You can start today with a small practice. Choose a quiet time for yourself, perhaps early in the morning or before going to bed. Sit with a straight back, relax your body, close your eyes, and take a deep breath. As you inhale, silently tell yourself, "I know I am inhaling." As you exhale, silently tell yourself, "I know I am exhaling." Just that simply, without force or constraint, just let your mind follow your breath. If any thoughts arise, let them come and go, like clouds drifting across the sky. Don't cling to them, and don't push them away. Just 10 to 15 minutes each day, and you will find your mind gradually settling, and your body feeling lighter. Besides, breath meditation, listening to Dharma talks, is also a way to heal. When we listen to the Buddha's teachings, our minds are refreshed, as if by drops of nectar. All worries gradually dissipate, replaced by clarity and serenity. Or we can choose to eat vegetarian for a few days a month, not only to nourish the body with wholesome food, but also to cultivate a compassionate mind, reducing harm. These small actions are how we return to care for our body and mind, so that the body is healthy, the mind is at peace, and life is bright. Remember that no one can bring you peace but yourself. There is no medicine as miraculous as sitting down, breathing, and smiling at yourself. When your body and mind are healed, you will see that previous difficulties and impasses were, in fact, just fleeting showers. What matters is whether we have enough peace to walk in the rain without feeling drenched. The Lin Buddhist Dharma channel wants to convey to you that peace is not far away. It is right in your breath, in every step, in every moment you live fully in the present. When the body and mind are at peace, all storms become gentle. And that is the key to healing, the path that leads us out of impasses to live a truly peaceful life. From the moment they are born, humans carry many burdens: suffering from birth, suffering from old age, suffering from sickness, suffering from death, suffering from unfulfilled desires, suffering from unwelcome things that keep coming. In this life, how many can avoid impasses? Moments of frustration where it feels like the whole world has turned its back on them. Some despair after a failure at work. Some close their hearts after a heartbreak in a relationship. Others blame heaven for being unfair, or people for being ungrateful. But dear friends, if we understand the law of karma, we will no longer blame heaven or resent others, but know that everything we are carrying today has its origin in the seeds we ourselves sowed in the past. Perhaps you have heard the saying, "As you sow, so shall you reap." This is not just a folk proverb, but also a truth in Buddhism. Karma is a red thread running through the teachings of the world-honored one, forming the foundation for us to understand life and ourselves. Many people, when facing an impasse, complain, "Why am I suffering so much? Why is that person so happy?" Yet few are willing to reflect that today we are reaping the fruits of the seeds we sowed before. It could be in this lifetime, or perhaps from past lives that we do not yet remember. Karma is never mistaken. There is no sowing bitter seeds and harvesting sweet fruit, nor sowing wholesome seeds and receiving harmful results. That is the absolute fairness of the universe, a fairness that no power can change. I want to tell you a very true story about Min, a young man from a poor rural area. From a young age, Min dreamed of escaping hardship, wanting to get rich quickly so his parents would no longer suffer. Filial piety is good, but due to impatience, Min chose the wrong path. He listened to people enticing him to invest in real estate, but he had no capital. Min recklessly borrowed at usurious, exorbitant interest rates to invest. At first, seeing the large profits, Min was overjoyed, thinking his dream was about to come true. But life is not that easy. After only a few months, the market plummeted, and all his capital vanished into thin air. Not only did he lose all the borrowed money, but Min also incurred a huge debt. Hounded by creditors, with his family worried and friends shunning him, Min became so despondent that he contemplated suicide many times. During those dark days, Min often looked up at the sky and lamented, "Oh God, why is this so unfair? Why do I only want to take care of my parents, yet I suffer so much?" There were days he sat alone in the dark, resenting even those who had deceived him, and even resenting himself. But then, one time, out of utter despair, Min followed a friend to a pagoda. During the Dharma talk, the abbot spoke about karma. He said, "If a person sows seeds of reckless greed, the outcome cannot be good. To achieve lasting happiness, one must sow wholesome seeds, live virtuously, know contentment, and know how to let go." Min listened as if he saw himself in every word. He suddenly realized that all the suffering he endured today was not caused by heaven's wrath, nor by others' malice, but precisely by his own greedy desire to get rich quickly, which sowed unwholesome seeds. Now, having to reap the bitter fruit was inevitable. From that day on, Min changed completely. He no longer pursued the dream of getting rich at any cost. He found work as a laborer. Although his income was meager, it was honest. Every day, Min spent time chanting a short sutra, sitting in contemplation for about 10 minutes. Gradually, his mind became more peaceful. His creditors, seeing his sincere efforts, allowed him to gradually defer his debt. Relatives and friends, seeing his change, gradually grew to care for him again. Although his life was not luxurious, Min felt lighter. And most importantly, he understood that whatever seeds he sowed, he would reap the corresponding fruit. To have a good future, one must sow wholesome seeds today. Through Min's story, we clearly see that the law of karma is not distant. Every thought, word, and action of ours is a seed sown into the soil of life. Some seeds will sprout quickly. Others will take many years to blossom and bear fruit, but none will ever be lost. If today we live with greed and selfishness, tomorrow we can hardly avoid suffering. If today we cultivate compassion and do good deeds, in the future we will receive peaceful results. A person who understands karma will no longer blame heaven or resent others, knowing that everything stems from themselves. So, in moments of impasse, instead of complaining, let us quietly sit with ourselves, reflecting on what seeds we have sown to lead to today's outcome. When we clearly see this, we will learn how to correct ourselves and to transform suffering. The simplest practice I want to share is a short contemplation meditation. You can sit still with a straight back, relax your shoulders, close your eyes, inhale deeply, and silently think, I am receiving peaceful energy. Exhale slowly, silently thinking, I release all resentment. Do this a few times, and you will find your mind lighter, your heart less tense. Then, think about a small, good deed you can do tomorrow, such as helping someone in need, saying a kind word, or simply offering a sincere smile that is sowing wholesome seeds. When we understand and live with karma, we will no longer view life with bitterness, but with grateful eyes. Today's suffering is a lesson, an opportunity for us to grow. Today's joy is the fruit of wholesome deeds sown. Nothing is random, and nothing is meaningless. The Buddha once taught, as a shadow never leaves the form, so karma follows us. This means that karma will follow us in every breath, every step. There is no escaping it. Understanding this, we will stop blaming heaven, stop resenting others, and instead turn inward to cultivate ourselves, to sow wholesome seeds for the present and the future. The message the Lin Ung Buddhist Dharma channel wants to convey to you, dear friends, is that at any time we can sow new seeds. Even if yesterday we accidentally sowed bitter seeds, today we can still sow sweet ones. Even if life has been full of suffering, if from now on we live sincerely and virtuously, our future will certainly be brighter. Remember, no one can change our destiny but ourselves. When we sow goodness, wholesome fruits will come, like a shadow following a form. And in this way, an impasse is no longer a dead end, but merely a turn where we learn to walk more steadily on life's path. Humans, on their long journey through this earthly realm, often mistake their greatest enemies to be others, difficulties, adversities, or unjust grievances. But dear friends, there is a much more silent and dangerous enemy. It is always beside us, accompanying us from birth until we close our eyes. If we do not recognize and tame it, this entire life will be filled with suffering. That enemy is the ego, the clinging self, the selfishness that seeks to protect itself without regard for anyone else. The Buddha once taught that conquering 1,000,000 soldiers on the battlefield is not the mark of a great hero. Conquering oneself is the greatest victory. As long as we are entangled by the ego, we will always compare ourselves to others, striving for superiority. We want to prove we are right, want others to acknowledge us, want to be better than others, to be praised, to be respected. It is precisely because of this that countless afflictions arise. We get angry when someone criticizes us. We feel sad when we are not valued. We feel jealous when others succeed. All sources of suffering stem from this clinging to self. If we know how to release the ego, how to view all matters with an egalitarian eye, knowing that this body, this reputation, this benefit are merely temporary, then the mind will be much more peaceful. But saying it is easy. Practicing it is truly difficult. For the ego is extremely subtle and powerful. There is a story about Venerable Phúc, a determined young monk. When he was still a junior monk in the pagoda, he vowed to diligently practice, letting go of all worldly attachments to seek enlightenment. When he turned 30, he sought permission from his master to enter solitary retreat in the mountains for 3 years. During those 3 years, Venerable Phúc lived hidden in a small hermitage. Day after day, he chanted sutras, meditated, ate wild vegetables, and drank spring water. He endured sun and rain, never shrinking from cold winds. He kept his body and mind solely focused on the path of practice. On the day he emerged from his retreat, many people from the pagoda and Buddhist followers came to welcome him with reverence. Everyone praised his diligence, praising him as a person of high virtue. Initially, the Venerable humbly dismissed the praise, but then, like drops of water continuously falling on stone, over time, it left its mark. The words of commendation stirred a slight sense of pride within him. He thought he had achieved something few could. He thought his practice was far superior to many others. The ego subtly grew, and he didn't realize it in time. Once, during a Dharma talk, he listened to an elder monk share his practice experiences. Instead of listening with a peaceful mind, he began to compare, thinking the elder monk's teachings were inferior to his own. In that very moment, he suddenly awoke, realizing his ego was still too immense. 3 years in solitary retreat had not yet conquered himself, so his practice was not yet complete. Venerable Phúc story gives us much to ponder. Many times, we think we have practiced well, lived virtuously, and let go of greed and anger. Yet the ego subtly hides in another form. It causes us to become complacent, arrogant, believing ourselves superior to others. That is the greatest obstacle on the path to liberation. The Buddha once taught that all phenomena are without a fixed self, anatta, and all existence arises from converging conditions. There is no permanent self, no independent I. If we cling tightly to the self, it is like embracing a burning coal. The one who suffers is none other than ourselves. In daily life, the ego manifests in countless situations. When we argue with loved ones just to prove we are right, that is the ego. When we feel upset because a colleague is praised and we are not, that is the ego. When our heart burns with anger simply because someone disrespected us, that too is the ego. Each time the ego arises, it robs us of our peace, plunging us into affliction. Therefore, If we want to overcome impasses, we must learn to conquer ourselves. A small practice you can apply today is a contemplation meditation on letting go of the ego. Sit still, inhale deeply, and as you exhale, silently think, I don't need to prove anything. As you inhale, feel your existence in the vast universe. As you exhale, release comparison with others. Imagine yourself as a drop of water merging into the ocean, no longer separate, no longer superior or inferior, only silence and immensity. Just a few minutes like this each day, and your mind will gradually lighten. The ego will loosen its grip, and you will find your heart opening. When you conquer the ego, you will find life's sufferings greatly diminished. Whether others praise or criticize, you remain calm. Success or failure, gain or loss, you are not overly troubled, because you know that the ego is merely an illusion, and this body is but a temporary convergence of conditions, one day to return to dust. The greatest victory is not defeating others, but conquering your own anger, ambitions, and selfishness within your heart. That is a magnificent achievement, the path that leads us to peace. My dear friend, if today we are still stuck because of striving for superiority, fame, or profit, or because of being offended, remember that all these emotions originate from the ego. Be brave enough to turn and look directly at it, recognize it, and gradually let it go. Each time you let go a little, your mind will lighten a little, and when you let go completely, you will achieve inner freedom. Among the countless battles of human life, conquering the ego is the most glorious victory. There is a philosophy that everyone who goes through life has encountered. Failure is not the end. Failure is merely a silent, strict, yet compassionate teacher that helps us reflect on ourselves and learn the necessary lessons to move forward. The Buddha once taught that life is impermanence. Where there is birth, there is death. Where there is coming together, there is separation. Where there is success, there is failure. For this very reason, no one can journey through this human realm experiencing only fragrant flowers and sweet fruits. Stumbling is an inseparable part of the path to growth. But what is more important is what we learn after those falls. If we know how to transform, how to see failure as a teacher, then failure itself opens the door to success. Looking back, we will see that in life, there are moments that discourage us, make us despair, even make us feel as though all doors have closed. But in reality, failure has never been a condemnation. It is merely a reminder that the path we are on still needs adjustment, still needs refinement. A successful person is not someone who has never fallen, but someone who knows how to get up after falling. That person is not afraid of pain or loss, but uses their falls as motivation to walk more strongly. Just as a seed cannot sprout if it does not break its shell, so too, how can a soul be steady if it does not undergo trials? Consider a person who knows only success from beginning to end, having never tasted failure. That person would not understand what pain is, nor what true effort means. How can a lotus bloom with pure fragrance if it does not emerge from the muddy swamp? Likewise, a truly successful person is one who has been submerged in the mud of failure, yet still stretches their body and leaves toward the light. Failure does not diminish us. It is the fear of failure that makes us lose our way. The Buddha taught that all phenomena are impermanent. Joy passes and sorrow ends. And both success and failure are just like a cloud drifting across the sky. Nothing lasts forever. I want to tell you the story of a young man named Tri, born into an ordinary family in Dong Thap. From a young age, Tri dreamed of becoming a lecturer, of standing on a podium to impart knowledge and inspire future generations. But the path to that dream was not easy. The first year, he took the university entrance exam. Tri failed. That was a huge shock to him. For many years throughout high school, he had always been a good student, and his family, friends, and neighbors were all surprised. Some comforted him, but not a few criticized and looked down on him. Tri was very sad. Sometimes he wondered, am I not good enough? Is my dream too distant? But then, instead of giving up, Tri chose to confront it. He spent another year preparing, self-studying, and correcting his shortcomings. Yet, in his second attempt, Tri failed again. This pain was even deeper than the first time. Some nights, he lay looking at the ceiling, tears streaming down, feeling useless. A friend once told him, "You failed the exam twice already. Just find some other job. Don't dream anymore." Hearing that, his heart ached, but deep down, the flame of his dream still burned. He decided to try one more time. Tri regarded his two previous failures as a hard-earned lesson, drawing experience, studying harder, smarter, and more steadfastly. In his third year, he was accepted into his dream university. The day he held his admission letter, his whole family cried tears of joy. Later, when he became a lecturer, standing before his students, Tri recounted his story. He didn't hide his failures in the exams, but considered them a source of pride, because it was thanks to those two failures that he became a stronger person. Tri often reminded his students, "I failed the exam twice, but it was through failure that I understood the value of success. If you stumble, remember that it is not the end, but merely a lesson to help you get back up." That story spread, becoming a motivation for many generations of students, helping them believe in themselves more whenever they faced failure. Through this story, we realize a truth. Failure is precisely life's test to see if we have enough perseverance, enough faith, enough courage to continue. If we overcome it, we not only move closer to success, but also become more mature and resolute. As the Buddha taught, this life itself is the greatest school, and every suffering and failure are merely lessons we must go through. A person who knows how to learn from failure will find their soul becoming steadier and their wisdom increasingly clear. Someone asked, "How can one not fear failure?" The answer is actually simple. See failure as a lesson, not a punishment. When we fall, ask ourselves, what have I learned from this fall? In this way, fear will dissipate, replaced by gratitude. Gratitude because failure helps us see more clearly, understand ourselves better. For someone who knows how to be grateful for failure, nothing can bring them down. To cultivate this spirit, each day we can practice a small exercise. Sit still, breathe slowly, inhale deeply, and exhale gently. And with each breath, recall a failure in your life. Don't chase it away, don't fear it. Just look at it like an old friend, smile, and whisper in your heart, "Thank you, failure, for teaching me resilience. Thank you, failure, for helping me grow." When we can breathe and smile in the face of failure, our mind will lighten, and our heart will open more. When we let go of fear and are grateful for our stumbles, we will realize that each fall is a step toward success. Just like Try's story, if he had stopped after his first failed exam, he would never have become a lecturer, never been able to inspire countless generations of students. True success lies not in how quickly or slowly we reach the destination, but in whether we persevere to the very end. So, if today you are failing in a job, a relationship, or a dream, please do not despair. Remember that failure is merely a strict yet compassionate teacher. It does not come to defeat you, but to teach you a necessary lesson. Each time you fall, stand up, wipe away your tears, adjust your steps, and continue. Then, one day, looking back, you will smile, grateful for your stumbles, because they are what made you the strong person you are today. The message we need to engrave in our hearts is that failure is not an enemy. Failure is a teacher. And if we know how to learn from that teacher, we will no longer veer, no longer despair. Each stumble will become a stepping stone, lifting us closer to success, closer to maturity. Let the Buddha's teachings illuminate the path. Suffering is the material for growth. Failure is the lesson for success. In life, each person is born into different circumstances. Some are born into wealthy families, enjoying abundant material possessions. Others open their eyes to the world in dilapidated thatched huts, where parents toil for every meal just to feed their children. Many often complain, "Why was I born into poverty? Why is my fate so unfair?" But please remember, the background is never the sole factor determining one's life. We don't get to choose where we are born, but we have the right to choose how we live. And it is precisely how we live, how we strive, that creates our true destiny. The Buddha once taught that no one can save us but ourselves, no one can pun, and no one has the right. We ourselves must walk our own path. That teaching is not just a philosophy, but also a compass that helps us understand that regardless of the circumstances of our birth, effort, and the will to rise up determine the value and success of a person's life. A poor person can become a great figure. An orphan child can become a talented leader, just as someone born into luxury can fall if they only rely on that foundation without striving. In reality, we easily encounter complaints like, "I'm poor, so I can't succeed. I don't have parents to support me, so I can't go far." But such thoughts are invisible ropes that bind us, making us live a narrow, small life, forever controlled by circumstances. Conversely, those who know how to accept the present, who do not complain, but cultivate the will to move forward, will transform every adversity into a stepping stone toward success. Karma in Buddhist Dharma also reminds us that as you sow, so shall you reap. Those who sow the seeds of perseverance, effort, and giving their utmost will reap the reward of a stable, prosperous, and accomplished life. Let's listen to a small story to see that poverty is never destiny. In a poor rural area of Nge-an, there was a little girl named Hoa. Her parents were farmers, toiling year-round, yet still struggling to make ends meet. From a young age, Hoa had to follow her mother to the fields to plant rice, go crabbing and fishing, and often even sell lottery tickets to help her parents provide family meals. On those hot days, her bare feet walked through every alley, her voice hoarse from shouting, "Lottery tickets!" Hoa remained patient because she knew that every ticket sold could contribute a little money to ease her parents' hardship. There were times when she was tired, and she would wonder why she was born into such a difficult situation. Why couldn't she be like other children, eating well, dressing beautifully, and being driven to school by her parents? But then, in those very moments, another strength arose within her. She didn't want her future to forever be tied to poverty. She told herself, being born poor isn't my fault. But if I give up, that's my own fault. So Hoa sold lottery tickets, while also seizing the opportunity to study under the flickering oil lamp. She self-studied, researching every math problem, every passage, and continuously cultivated her willpower. Despite her hardships, she never dropped out of school. With all her efforts, Hoa passed her university entrance exams. In her early days in the city, she studied while working part-time, from bussing tables at restaurants to tutoring. There were times when she was utterly exhausted, but she didn't give up. For many years, from a poor village girl who sold lottery tickets, Hoa became the director of a garment company, creating jobs for hundreds of workers. Hoa's story is the clearest proof that circumstances are not shackles, binding destiny. Only giving up will keep us forever trapped in poverty. For those with willpower, any circumstance is merely a challenge. For those without willpower, even wealth can be lost. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha once said, "Mind is the forerunner of all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind-wrought. If with an impure mind one speaks or acts, suffering follows him, like the wheel that follows the foot of the ox. If with a pure mind one speaks or acts, happiness follows him, like a shadow that never leaves him." Being born poor does not create karmic suffering. Rather, it is negative thoughts and actions that lead us into long-term hardship. Conversely, if we cultivate a pure and steadfast will, live uprightly, and strive every day, peace and success will follow us like a shadow. From another perspective, we can also see in Buddhist history that many venerable monks came from impoverished backgrounds. Even the Buddha himself, after attaining enlightenment, affirmed that status, wealth, or caste do not determine liberation. A person from a lower class can still become an arhat if they diligently practice. Therefore, when we look at ourselves, we should never feel self-conscious or inferior about our background. In daily life, whenever we feel weak, discouraged, or troubled, try sitting down and breathing slowly. As you inhale, acknowledge that you are still alive. As you exhale, smile and silently remind yourself, "I can change my future." Such a small practice helps us let go of inferiority complexes and awaken inner strength. We can also write down 3 things we are grateful for in our circumstances, no matter how small, such as being grateful to our parents for giving us life, grateful to teachers for educating us, grateful for challenges that have strengthened our will. When we are grateful, our minds will complain less, and our willpower will grow. please allow me to convey this message to you. No one chooses where they are born, but everyone can choose how they live. Don't trap yourself in complaints. Don't think that poverty is destiny. It is effort, willpower, and perseverance that are the keys to unlocking the door to success. When you dare to take one step at a time, the path will naturally appear. Remember the Buddha's teaching. By oneself is evil done. By oneself is one defiled. By oneself is evil left undone. By oneself is one purified. Purity and impurity depend on oneself. No one can purify another. So, if today you are in difficult circumstances, do not be pessimistic. Instead, use it as a springboard to rise up. Remember that no one determines your destiny, but yourself. And only when you consistently sow wholesome seeds, every day, will sweet fruits ripen, bringing you happiness, peace, and success in this life and many lives to come. There's one thing that each of us, whether rich or poor, living in a bustling city or a tranquil countryside, must face at least once: loneliness. Loneliness spares no one, irrespective of age, status, or circumstances. Some feel lonely in a crowd. Some feel lonely sitting in an empty room. And some feel lonely even when living with family. For this reason, loneliness becomes an unavoidable experience in human life. But the important thing is not whether we are lonely, but how we face that loneliness. The Buddha once taught that all suffering arises from attachment. If we cling to the idea that loneliness is suffering, it will become a heavy burden, weighing down our shoulders. But if we view loneliness as an opportunity, a mirror reflecting our own soul, then it opens a door leading to profound peace. Loneliness often makes us feel empty and frustrated because we are used to relying on external circumstances and other people to find joy and companionship. When that presence is lost, we are startled by the emptiness within our hearts. But it is at that very moment that we realize how long we have not truly lived with ourselves. We are busy with work, with society, with relationships, forgetting that we too need to be listened to, cared for, and understood. If we do not know how to sit with ourselves, loneliness will become an abyss. But if we know how to turn inward, it becomes a doorway to meditation and awakening. There's a story about Mr. Lam, a man over 60 years old in Kantho. He lived his entire life with his gentle wife. The two of them built a simple life together. But then one day, his wife fell seriously ill and passed away. The pain of that loss plunged Mr. Lam into an endless void. He no longer had anyone to talk to, no one to cook meals with, no one to sit beside him and listen to his mundane stories. From then on, he became sad, often resorting to alcohol to forget reality. Each drink allowed him to temporarily forget his pain. But when he sobered up, loneliness rushed back more intensely. There were nights he sat in the dark house, with only the sound of the wind blowing outside in the garden, his heart aching with the feeling of being left behind in life. However, fate did not let him sink forever into darkness. One day, by chance, he accepted an invitation from a neighbor to attend a Dharma talk at a pagoda. During that talk, the abbot spoke about impermanence, about how departure is an inevitable part of life. He reminded them that death is not the end, but merely a transformation. And the suffering of those left behind is due to attachment that they cannot let go of. Those words resonated like a awakening bell in Mr. Lamb's heart. From then on, he began to change. He visited the pagoda more frequently, practiced chanting sutras, and began to meditate. At first, sitting alone quietly was very difficult. So many memories, so much sorrow would rush back. But gradually, with each slow breath, he learned to observe his emotions, recognize his sadness without hastily pushing it away. He realized that loneliness was no longer a terrifying abyss, but a friend, a mirror, reflecting the truth of his own heart. And from then on, he lived more lightly, more peacefully, even feeling grateful that loneliness had helped him find the path back to himself. Through Mr. Lamb's story, we can see that loneliness is not actually a misfortune, but a precious opportunity for us to return to our inner selves. The Buddha once reminded us, "Be a lamp unto yourselves. Go forth with your own light." This means that each person must be their own lamp, illuminating their own path, and cannot forever rely on others. Loneliness is precisely the circumstance for us to learn that lesson. When there is no one else by our side, we learn to rely on our own mind, to befriend our breath, our steps, and every present moment. And when we can dwell peacefully in this moment, loneliness will dissipate, because we will have found the greatest companionship, our own awakened mind. If you are feeling lonely, try dedicating a small practice to yourself. Sit down in a quiet place. Gently close your eyes, relax your shoulders, take a deep breath, and exhale slowly. Each breath is a bridge, bringing you back to yourself. As you inhale, you can silently tell yourself, "I am returning to this body." As you exhale, you gently smile, "I am letting go of worries." With just a few minutes of patience each day, you will notice your mind calming down, and the emptiness gradually giving way to warmth, because you are learning to become your own best friend. If possible, try one more step. Write down one thing you are grateful for today. It could be the morning sunlight, a simple meal, or simply that you are healthy enough to sit here and breathe. By writing it down, you will see that loneliness can also become a source of nourishment, because it gives you the opportunity to look deeply into the truth of life. Finally, remember that loneliness is not a sign of unhappiness, but a stage for us to grow in spirit. Just as a seed needs to lie still in the dark earth before sprouting, humans also need moments of solitary loneliness to develop understanding, compassion, and presence in the present moment. Therefore, if you are experiencing loneliness, do not rush to blame it, nor try to escape it. Embrace it, observe it, and let it become the teacher that teaches you the lesson of returning to yourself. At that point, you will realize that peace has always been in your heart, just waiting for you to quiet down to reach it. And once you find that peace, you will realize that nothing can truly make you feel alone anymore. In life, each of us has, at least once, experienced the feeling of loss when a loved one departs from us. Sometimes it's a broken friendship, sometimes a failed romance, or even a marriage that regrettably ends prematurely. Each time this happens, the pain seems to engrave itself deeply into the heart, leaving voids that are not easily filled. We often ask ourselves, why did they leave us? Why did affection, once so passionate and full of vows, suddenly turn into estrangement? That pain causes many to sink into resentment, clinging, and even despair. But if we look deeply with the eyes of Buddhist Dharma, we will see that people come and go due to karmic affinity. And when that affinity ends, letting go is the path to peace. The Buddha taught that all things in life operate according to the law of dependent origination, karma, and conditions. A falling leaf requires the wind to make the branch release it. A blooming flower requires the convergence of sun, wind, earth, and water, let alone human emotions. All things arise from converging conditions. When conditions scatter, they disperse. Yet, we often cling to mine, thinking that person is ours, that affection must last forever. It is this very clinging that gives rise to suffering. When someone departs, we feel betrayed, abandoned, when in reality, the karmic affinity has simply run out. The causes have ceased. If we have enough wisdom to recognize this, we will no longer blame, no longer cling, but will know how to accept with release. The story of Mai, a young woman in Da Nang, is a testament to this. Mai married in her early 20s. Throughout 7 years of living together, she and her husband experienced much happiness, as well as many difficulties. However, disagreements grew. Her husband gradually became distant, and finally, they both decided to divorce. At that time, Mai felt as though she had lost everything. She could not accept the truth. Day and night, she cried and complained, blaming her husband for betrayal and fate for being unfair. That pain caused her to collapse, no longer wanting to move forward. But once, when friends took her to a pagoda to listen to Dharma, Mai heard the monk speak about karmic affinity. The monk said that husband and wife are like guests staying overnight. When their affinity ends, each goes their own way, and clinging cannot prevent it. The important thing is not to blame who is right or wrong, but to learn to accept so that both can find peace of mind. Those words were like drops of water, gradually soaking into Mai's parched soul. Gradually, she learned to let go. She no longer tried to contact her ex-husband, no longer tormented herself. She focused on raising her child, finding joy in her work, and cultivating wholesome seeds. As time passed, Mai grew stronger, and most importantly, she found peace within herself. If we look deeply into that story, we will see that someone's departure is not an end, but merely a sign of a new karmic affinity. When we accept that person's departure, we are opening up an opportunity to renew our own life, while also giving the other person a chance to find a path suitable for them. That is the compassion and wisdom that Buddhist Dharma teaches us to practice. Perhaps some will say that letting go is too difficult, because the human heart easily clings, easily loves, and then suffers when there is loss. But remember that the greater the suffering, the closer the opportunity for enlightenment. The Buddha once taught that suffering is our teacher. It is precisely the pain of loss that helps us learn the lesson of letting go, helping us grow in wisdom. When we no longer resent, no longer cling, we will feel relieved, as if a burden has been cast off. And in that relief, a new strength will blossom, helping us continue on life's path with equanimity. If you are suffering because someone has left you, try a small practice. Find a quiet place, sit down, and close your eyes. Take a deep breath, Then exhale gently. As you inhale, think, I accept what is happening. As you exhale, think, I am letting go of clinging. Practice this for a few minutes each day. You can also write down on paper the things you were grateful for in that relationship, perhaps beautiful memories or lessons learned. After writing, fold the paper and silently say, I am grateful, and I let go. When you do this, you will find your heart softening, the pain gradually dissipating, and a new sense of peace slowly emerging. The important thing is to understand that the person who left you did not do so because you are unworthy, but simply because their karmic affinity to walk this path with you has ended. Don't rush to blame them, nor blame yourself. See it as a karmic connection that has run its course, and now each person needs to continue on their own path. It's like two rivers meeting and then separating. Each will flow to the ocean in its own way, yet both merge into the vast ocean. We and they are the same. We part ways today, but ultimately, we share the same stream of karmic connection in the vast cycle of rebirth. Therefore, if you are feeling stuck because you have lost someone, remember that their departure does not take away your happiness. On the contrary, it gives you an opportunity to return to yourself, to live more fully in the present, to learn to love without clinging. When you know how to let go, you will realize that you no longer depend on others for happiness. True happiness has always been within you. You just need to open your heart to receive it. People come and go in life due to karmic affinity. When conditions are ripe, they meet. When affinity runs out, they part. Accept this as a natural law. Do not resist. Do not cling. Let the departure become a lesson for your growth, to make your heart more open. When you understand and live in this way, you will no longer fear loss, no longer fear loneliness, but will know how to smile in the face of all life's changes. And then you will see that every separation is not an end, but merely a door opening to a new beginning. Perhaps the most equitable gift life bestows upon all of us is time. Each day, everyone has only 24 hours, no more, no less. But ironically, we often live as if we have an entire, long life stretching endlessly before us, and then inadvertently waste precious moments. We hesitate to speak words of love. We procrastinate doing good deeds. We become engrossed in sadness, anger, worries, and disputes, forgetting that every passing second is a second that will never return. The Buddha once reminded us that impermanence is one of the greatest truths of human existence. Nothing lasts forever. From a leaf, a rain shower, a joy, or a sorrow, all pass. This body, too, is impermanent. One day, it will return to the earth. So then, why do we let time pass in waste instead of living each moment fully? If we observe carefully, we will see that all suffering originates from our non-acceptance of impermanence. We want to hold on to youth, to keep love forever, to cling to happy moments, and when they change, we suffer. But in reality, impermanence is not an enemy, but a reminder for us to cherish the present. Because time passes, we understand the value of every smile, every embrace, every moment with loved ones. If everything were unchanging, perhaps we would never truly appreciate anything. It is impermanence itself that has taught us to love more deeply, to live more meaningfully, because we know that perhaps tomorrow, everything will only be a memory. The story of Nam, a 12-year-old boy from Hue, left an invaluable lesson. Nam, unfortunately, suffered from a terminal illness. Doctors said he did not have much time left to live. Initially, his parents were in immense pain, weeping until their tears ran dry, blaming heaven and earth for being so unfair to a child. But Nam possessed an unusually pure and strong spirit. Instead of being pessimistic or resentful, he accepted the truth gently. He told his parents, "I'm not afraid to die. I'm only afraid that if I'm sad, you'll be sad too. So I want to smile a lot, so you can be happy." And indeed, in the days that followed, Nam lived with a constant smile on his face. He drew pictures, wrote journal entries, expressing gratitude to his parents, shared with friends, enjoyed every family meal, every morning, watching the sunrise. Even on the day he passed away, the sadness remained. But what resonated in the hearts of his loved ones was not the image of a sickly child, but a little angel who had taught them the lesson of living fully. If viewed through the lens of Buddhist teachings, Nam's story is a vivid illustration of the teaching on impermanence. This body is merely temporary. No one can know how long they will live. Therefore, the Buddha always advised people to live mindfully in every moment. When we eat rice, be fully present with each mouthful. When we walk, feel each step. When we speak words of love, let our heart be present in that statement. If tomorrow we are no longer here, we will have no regrets, because we will have truly lived each moment to the fullest. In the Agamas, the Buddha once said, "Youth passes quickly. Human life is like morning dew, not to be wasted. Strive diligently today." That is not just a reminder for the elderly and infirm, but for all of us. Because no one can guarantee that they will still be here tomorrow. So why do we delay happiness? Why do we let worries and trivialities steal precious time? Remember that a second gone will never return. If you want to learn to live fully, start with a small practice. Every morning before beginning your day, sit quietly and take 3 deep breaths. As you inhale, silently tell yourself, "Today is a gift." As you exhale, smile and think, "I will live this day fully." You can also write down a sentence of gratitude at the end of the day. For example, "Today I am grateful to have eaten a meal with my family." Or, "I am grateful to have laughed heartily once today." These small actions will remind you that every day is precious. Every moment is worth living. When we know how to live in the present, we no longer worry too much about the future, nor do we regret the past. We understand that everything, whether joyful or sorrowful, will pass with the flow of time. Joy is impermanent, and sorrow is impermanent. Therefore, what we need to do is keep our minds settled and cherish what we have. A simple meal can also become happiness. A word of inquiry can be a comfort. A hug can be priceless. If we live fully in that moment, time is impermanent, so do not waste it on resentment or jealousy. Instead of arguing, choose forgiveness. Instead of anger, choose love. Instead of wasting time on meaningless things, sow wholesome deeds. because everything we do today will become seeds for tomorrow. And when the last day comes, we will smile, knowing we have lived a life without regret. Remember the boy Nam, who taught us that even when we know we are about to depart from life, we can still choose to live fully and lovingly. If a 12-year-old child could do that, why can't we? Every moment you are living is a priceless gift bestowed by the universe. Don't let it pass in ignorance. Transform it into a moment of love, of awareness, of peace. And then one day, when our time gradually runs out, we will depart in peace, like a candle burning itself out to the very end, leaving a warm light in the hearts of those who remain. That is living each moment fully. That is how we overcome impasses and find meaning in this impermanent life. Perhaps in life, none of us has ever failed to exclaim, "Why is life so unfair?" Some are born into wealthy families with everything they need. They merely extend a hand, and someone is there to support them. Others have struggled from childhood with the demands of food and money, enduring countless deprivations. Some are born healthy and intelligent, while others carry illness or disabilities from birth. Looking around, we easily perceive injustice present everywhere, from society and family to the very circumstances of each human being. So, how should we live in the face of what seems unchangeable? This is a question that has pained many hearts and dissatisfied many souls. But if we calmly reflect, we will see that hidden within this injustice is a profound lesson, a door to unlock immense spiritual strength. The Buddha once taught, "The world is inherently impermanent. Human life is governed by karma and its effects. Nothing comes to us by chance, nor does any injustice occur without prior cause." A person born into an affluent family might be reaping the karmic results of generosity and merit-making in many previous lives. A person born into poverty might be experiencing the ripening of unwholesome karmic fruits. A person with a disability is not punished by heaven, but is experiencing the results of past karmic conditions. Hearing this, some may feel heavy-hearted, even despairing. But in reality, understanding karma is not for us to give up, but for us to know that we ourselves can sow new seeds, that we ourselves can transform our destiny through our actions today. Injustice is a reality, but injustice does not have to be the end. Rather, it is the beginning of a journey to temper our will, challenge our resolve, and cultivate compassion. If we just sit there complaining, we only deepen the wound in our hearts. But if we know how to accept that life cannot inherently be perfect, and then from that acceptance, rise up and act, then adversity can become a springboard to propel us further. There are countless examples of people who rose from adversity, transforming what is called injustice into a guiding light for themselves and for others. It is precisely scarcity and disadvantage that have forged extraordinary individuals. That is also the spirit of non-self, anatta, that the Buddha taught. That we should not view things through the lens of personal selfishness, but rather see them as an essential part of the operation of karmic conditions in the universe. At that time, our minds no longer resist, but become more tolerant and patient. The Lin Ung Buddhist Dharma channel wants to tell you a story about Tuan, a young man born into a poor family in central Vietnam. From the moment he cried his first cry, Tuan was not as fortunate as other children. His legs were deformed. He couldn't walk or stand normally. Tuan's childhood was marked by pitying glances, mixed with the ridicule of friends, and by falling repeatedly when he wanted to run and jump. But his legs wouldn't allow it. As a child, there were days he sat alone, crying, wondering, why is heaven so unfair? Why can everyone else run and jump, but I can't? But as he grew older, Tuan realized that if he kept complaining, his life would only sink into darkness. One day, hearing the sound of a guitar from a neighbor's house, a strange fire ignited within him. Tuan began to learn the guitar. At first, he was very clumsy. His fingers bled, but he persevered. His disabled legs couldn't take Tuan far, but his skillful hands opened up another world for him. Many years later, Tuan became a street artist, sitting on a small wooden stool on a street corner, holding his old guitar and singing with all his heart. Passers-by stopped to listen. Many shed tears seeing a young man with disabled legs shine so brightly. Tuan not only played the guitar, but also told his story, inspire those who felt life was unfair. He said that in the past, if he hadn't had disabled legs, perhaps he would never have found music, never known the simple happiness of bringing smiles to others. What seemed like injustice back then turned out to be a gift that allowed him to discover the hidden strength within. Tuan's story reminds us of the Buddha's teaching that suffering is the greatest teacher. It is precisely life's difficulties and injustices that help us grow, that make us appreciate what we have. If everyone in this life were born with equal abundance, lacking nothing, how many would learn to cultivate patience, willpower, and love? It is precisely because life is inherently unfair that there is room for us to sow seeds, create merit, and accumulate virtuous deeds. And it is precisely because life is unfair that we have the opportunity to become a source of support for others, sharing compassion and comfort. When we hear Tuan's story, we can reflect on ourselves. Have we not also, in our hearts, resented being born unlucky, or having an unsmooth career, or a broken relationship? But try to change your perspective and see adversity as a problem that life has given you. You can choose to give up, or you can choose to learn how to solve it. And each time you solve such a problem, your mind becomes more stable, and your wisdom shines brighter. As it is said in the Dhammapada, conquering 1,000,000 armies is not as great as conquering oneself, and conquering oneself often begins with accepting reality, letting go of resentment, and acting with mindfulness. To help your mind settle amidst injustices, you can try a small practice. Sit still, close your eyes, place your hand on your chest, and inhale deeply. As you exhale, silently whisper to yourself, I accept life as it is. As you inhale, feel the flow of breath nourishing your body and mind. As you exhale, let go of resentment, comparison, and jealousy. Repeat a few times, and you will feel lighter within your heart. Afterwards, write down 3 things you are grateful for today. No matter how small, it could be the smile of a loved one, a simple meal, or just a moment listening to birds sing outside your window. It is these seemingly ordinary things that serve as a foundation to help us realize that although this life may be unfair, there are still countless things worth cherishing. When we learn to accept injustice, we are no longer victims of circumstances, but masters of our own lives. When we know how to act with mindfulness, we not only transform our own suffering, but also inspire those around us. Just like Tuan, who, from a young man, once despairing over his disabled legs, ultimately became a light warming the hearts of many. That is proof that in the darkness of injustice, there is always a hidden flame waiting for us to ignite. So, if you feel that life is unfair, please do not rush to give up or complain. Remember the Buddha's teaching that all things are due to karma and its effects, and karma can be transformed by actions today. Choose to sow wholesome seeds, persevere, and accumulate merit. Then one day, you will see a brilliant flower bloom right on what seemed like barren ground. Life is inherently unfair, but it is precisely from this unfairness that we have the opportunity to rise, to become strong, and to live a truly meaningful life. In life, perhaps the most painful thing for humans is loss. Losing a loved one, losing a kindred spirit, losing a part of oneself. All leave voids that are hard to fill. That pain not only makes us cry, but also makes us feel utterly defeated, as if the whole world has just collapsed before our eyes. But if we look deeply into the nature of life, we will see that loss is not random, nor is it an injustice unique to anyone. It is an essential part of the law of impermanence. The Buddha taught that all that has a beginning has an end. All that is born eventually ceases. Birth, old age, sickness, and death are the common path for all human lives. No one can escape them. Understanding this, we realize that instead of sinking into suffering, loss itself is a valuable reminder for us to live each day fully and meaningfully. When a friend or a loved one leaves us, we often feel empty, regretting what we didn't get to do or say. We are afraid because we realize how fragile human life is. In the blink of an eye, everything can vanish. But it is precisely this fragility that gives value to every moment we are present. If life lasted forever, perhaps humans would never cherish each day, never rush to speak words of love, never appreciate a simple meal with family. It is only because life is finite, only because there is loss, that every moment we have together becomes priceless. In other words, impermanence is not our enemy, but a gentle teacher reminding us to live more mindfully. I want to tell you the story of Mr. Fat, a 70-year-old man living in Hanoi. For decades, he had a close friend, like family. They went through many ups and downs together, from their impoverished days to starting families, and then witnessing their children grow up. They were inseparable, drinking tea every morning, chatting about current events, sharing every sorrow and joy. Yet one day, that friend passed away from a serious illness. Mr. Fat was distraught, standing before his friend's altar, his heart aching as if cut by a knife. He cried, recalling old memories, feeling lost, as if half of his life had vanished. In the beginning, he fell into a state of continuous sadness. Every morning, he woke up and looked at the empty chair where they used to talk, and he would choke up. But then one day, while sitting in silence, he suddenly remembered the Buddha's teaching he had once heard when he accompanied his grandchild to the pagoda. This body is impermanent, like a water bubble, like morning dew, like a raindrop, like a flash of lightning. Contemplate this so that you are no longer sorrowful. The words resonated in his heart like an awakening bell. He realized his friend had completed this life and returned to the universal law. Nothing lasts forever. Though his friend's departure caused him pain, it was also a reminder that he, his children, and all people would one day also leave this world. From then on, instead of sadness, Mr. Fat decided to live differently. He exercised diligently to stay healthy and be with his children and grandchildren longer. He spent time at the pagoda, chanting sutras and listening to Dharma talks to find peace of mind. Every day, he tried to do a small good deed, sometimes helping a neighbor fix a door, sometimes buying small gifts for poor children. He said, "Do what you can right away. Don't wait to regret it later." He also told his children and grandchildren not to fear death, because death is a part of life. The important thing is to live a virtuous life, so that when you close your eyes and pass away, your heart is light, without regret. Mr. Fat's story is not just one man's tale, but a reminder for all of us. When we witness loss, we often feel life is too short, too fragile. But instead of fear, see it as an opportunity for awakening. Impermanence teaches us to love more while we still can, to say thank you, to say sorry when we still have the chance, to dedicate time to what is truly important instead of endlessly chasing money and fame. Because when death comes, no one can take their wealth with them. Only their merit and love remain. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha once taught his disciples to contemplate death every day, not out of fear, but to live mindfully. He said, "Contemplate that today might be your last day, so that you do not waste time, do not miss opportunities to do good deeds." In reality, death is not an end, but a continuation. The physical body dissolves, but the wholesome and unwholesome karma we create will lead us into future lives. So instead of fearing loss, sow many good seeds in every action, every word, every thought. You can try a small practice to face impermanence. Sit still, close your eyes, relax your whole body, and breathe slowly. As you inhale, feel life permeating your body. As you exhale, silently remind yourself that all things eventually fade. Then gently ask, if today were my last day, what would I want to do without regret? It could be a call to your parents, an apology to someone, or simply a sincere smile to the person next to you. Practicing this every day will help you cherish your own presence and that of others. When we truly understand impermanence, we no longer live in fear. We will live peacefully, knowing that loss is just a natural part of life. We will live more virtuously, knowing that each moment is unique, never to return. We will love more fully, understanding that one day we or those we love will depart. It is this awareness that helps us transform each day into a worthwhile one, without waste or regret. If you are experiencing the pain of loss, please let your mind be comforted by the Buddha's words. All conditioned phenomena are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one becomes weary of suffering. Sadness, too, will eventually subside, if only we are willing to open our hearts and accept the truth. And when that pain subsides, you will see that loss does not take everything, but leaves us a precious gift, a lesson in love, in appreciating the present, and how to live a meaningful day. So try to live like Mr. Fat. Smile more, love more, do more good deeds. See every day you wake up as a blessing, a priceless gift. Don't wait until you lose something to regret it, but live in a way that when you depart, you can smile, at peace and without regret. In the long journey of human life, everyone experiences periods of impasse to some degree, days where darkness seems to cover everything, with no way out. Sometimes we ask ourselves if there's truly a path to escape these sufferings. In fact, the Buddha left us an invaluable treasure, the right Dharma. If we know how to rely on it, practice it, and apply it, then even in the darkest days, its light will illuminate and support us. And today, we will reflect and conclude this journey of overcoming impasses with those miraculous teachings. When we suffer, our minds are often agitated, our hearts heavy with resentment. We easily blame fate, blame life, and even blame ourselves. But the Buddha taught that suffering is not an enemy, but a great teacher. It is precisely through suffering that we yearn for happiness. It is through darkness that we appreciate light, and there is no other way to overcome it than to face, accept, and transform it. Just as a lotus flower grows from muddy water yet rises in splendor, our lives can also become pristine if we know how to transform adversity into strength. On this journey, there are perhaps 5 golden keys that everyone needs to remember. First, know how to contemplate impermanence so as not to cling, to understand that nothing lasts forever, and suffering will also pass. Second, sow wholesome seeds, because as you sow, so shall you reap. How we live, life will return to us. Third, release hatred, because holding on to resentment only makes our hearts heavier. Fourth, practice mindfulness. Return to your breath. Recognize emotions so as not to be swept away. And fifth, cultivate compassion, opening your heart to love not only others, but also yourself. If applied, these 5 keys will be a solid foundation to help us weather life's storms. But overcoming impasses requires not only keys, but also reminders. Each day offers 10 such reminders, like lamps illuminating the path. 1. Never forget that life is impermanent. Today it is here. Tomorrow it may be gone. 2. Suffering is only a part of the journey, not the whole of life. 3. Be grateful, for even in suffering, there are still things to cherish. 4. Let go of excessive craving, for the more you crave, the easier it is to be disappointed. 5. Cherish those around you, for no one can walk with us forever. 6. Live virtuously, because as you sow, so shall you reap. Compassion brings peace and joy. 7. Do not compare yourself to anyone, for each person has their own karma. 8. Dedicate time to practice, to breathing, to quieting the mind. 9. When tired, give yourself permission to rest. Do not burden yourself. And 10. Always remember that within you lies the seed of enlightenment. Just water it, and it will blossom. There is a small story that carries profound meaning. Once upon a time, a king was deeply worried about life. He feared happiness would be lost, and suffering would last forever. He ordered a jeweler to engrave a precious phrase on a ring to always remind him. After many months, the jeweler presented a ring inscribed with 4 words, "This too shall pass." When happy, the king looked at the ring to remember that joy would not last forever, not to be overly attached. When suffering, the king also looked at the ring to know that suffering would not last eternally either, to be patient and overcome it. That reminder is the essence of impermanence, a message the Buddha taught us. To walk more steadily, you can try a small practice. Sit quietly, gently close your eyes, relax your body and mind. As you inhale, know that you are still breathing, meaning you are still alive. As you exhale, know that you still have the opportunity to live meaningfully. Silently tell yourself, "I know life is impermanent, so today I will live fully." If you dedicate a few minutes each day to these reminders, you will find your heart lighten, no longer clinging, no longer complaining. And finally, looking back, you will see that an impasse is no longer a deep abyss of despair, but merely a turning point for your growth. Just like a person rowing upstream, the harder they strive, the steadier their hands on the oars, the better they learn to navigate the boat to overcome big waves. Life is the same. It is precisely the rough patches that help us become stronger, learn to love, and appreciate true value. And now, as this journey concludes, I send you heartfelt wishes. May all sentient beings, whether in suffering or peace, have enough wisdom to recognize the light of the right Dharma. May those in impasses find a way out. May those who weep find a smile. May those who feel lost find a peaceful home within their own hearts. May you, I, and all of us live peacefully, with clear minds and happy lives.